My name is Juliana Nykolaiszyn with the Oklahoma State University Library. Tanya Finchum is also joining me today as an interviewer. Today is Sunday, May 17th, 2009, and we're with Jerry and Patsy Acton. This interview is being conducted as part of the Oklahoma Centennial Farm Families Oral History Project. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Well, let's begin by learning a little bit about how your family came to Oklahoma.
Well, the best I can tell you is the best we've heard, and it's Patsy has looked things up in as best as she can, anywhere she can, and just the old folks, the old homesteaders, came in on the run of '89 and staked this 160 acres out, and there's been an Acton family on it ever since, down through the generations. I guess 4, maybe 5, if you want to include our children, Acton families have lived here.
And where did they come from? What state?
Well, the last, when they come to here, they come out of Kansas. White Cloud, Kansas. We've never been up there yet to inquire about that and check them out, up there. But anyhow, they come from White Cloud, Kansas, and the Abraham, the original great-grandfather, and his wife, and they had several boys, and a couple of them was up old enough that let's see, what was the deal? You can probably tell better than me.
I think I can.
Yeah.
Abraham and Melissa, the great-grandfather and great-grandmother, they had 10 children. Jerry's grandpa, Arthur, was the baby. He was number 10. And from what we have here, a transcript that his grandpa's sister, Mary, who came with the great-grandpa, and 2 other brothers, they came first. They were ahead of, and in the run of '89. And so, according to what we have, the great-grandpa's team wasn't as fast as the two of the boys, the oldest boys. So anyway, they staked this out.
The 2 boys
Yeah,
come
they
ahead
came.
and staked this farm, and when great-grandpa got here, well, he got here.
And then his grandpa and his mama, they were coming too, but they came behind. Because I think his grandpa was like 8 years old. So.
Yeah, they stayed here a while and made sure the claim was good, I guess, and then they went back and moved the rest of the family down here.
But we have lots of information here for you to look at if you want to.
Great.
Later.
And tell me a little bit about the post office and the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
You or I?
You go ahead.
Well, it was located just what we call catty corner to this place, and they was the best of my understanding was there was probably half a mile of stores and homes, and there was a blacksmith shop, the post office, and then there were several more, I guess you would call them businesses, where the old timers would bring their machinery in and get it worked on, at the blacksmith shop, and a livery stable, and they called it Acton because she rode the Crescent every day and gathered the mail up there and took the mail in from out here that needed to go and brought it back, and they delivered it out here, in the post office. to the rural areas. People, they would come in and they get their mail. And that's really about all I can tell you about it.
Did you know it was called Acton, Oklahoma?
Well, I read it, but I wasn't sure if it was if it was named after your family.
Mm-hmm. It was Mary. It was his grandpa's sister Mary that came in 1889 in that run. So, and it's in here too. It's in that list of right here in the Oklahoma place names. Yeah.
So what became of Acton?
Well, I assume that when she quit carrying the mail, I think she got married
I think so.
to a Decker, matter of fact, over around Stillwater somewhere. And she quit doing the post office deal. And I assume that they just closed the post office down, and I never did hear of anybody else going ahead with it.
It said 1903 is when probably it was when she moved on.
Or the blacksmith shop or the livery stable. The stagecoach line used to come through there and stop there, in Acton.
That's what we were told, yeah. And they would always give them something to eat and drink,
Change horses if they needed to. But that's really about the far, I was just a kid, just a little bitty kid when I can remember the old where the post office was. There was just one building left over there when I came along, and that was a long time after that. But I do remember where it was at. There's nothing there now. Everything's gone and buried. And they farm right over top of it.
Well, turning back to the old farm, can you tell me about some of the original structures that were on the land at that time?
Well, here there was down in this canyon. There was what they called a lean-to. They lived in a lean-to, just a shed that was built in the side of the bank, and there was a natural spring down there, and that's where they kept their milk and their stuff that would spoil on them easy. And next after that, we haven't found anybody that knows much about that. All the old timers is gone, and nobody asked, I guess, while they was here. But they did build a house just about 50 foot north of this one. Sometime, I don't know when, what year or anything, but it was just the old house that everybody built. I mean, they was all built the same back in them days, And anyhow, that's where the family was raised at. The old grandpa and grandma and all their kids and everything. And we've got what's left after a tornado come through here, and I believe it was 57. Well, they had rocked up all these boys of the great grandpa had dug rocks out of the quarry back here, what we call it, quarry, and shaped the rocks and the best they could. And they built a chicken house right out here. The rocks are still up on the chicken house. They built it up about probably four foot tall, and then they built on with wood on up to 8-10 foot tall. I can remember it. And that was a chicken house. And down over the bank on north here, in the side of the bank, they had dug back into the bank, and they had rocked the walls up with the old big rocks, Well, it's still there, the basement. And I can remember the barn that was in there, and it was a 4-story barn. with the basement, and it had on each side of it, it had where you could back your wagons in and get them out of the weather. And there was granaries in there, you know, where you scoop your grain into the little granary parts to keep your seed till next planting season. And then up above, it had a full top in it, which they come out the A-frame door up there with the big hook, you know, and picked the hay up and brought it up, and that whole top was in. That's where they kept their hay. And then it went on up, you know, the roof went on up another story to make the A-frame roof on it. But it was a sight, I bet. When everything was going, it mentions it in these papers, and the old barn.
Mm-hmm. It's a very interesting story. The Mary Acton daughters, who were in their, I think the late 70s, 80s, they wrote a transcript. I mean, it is a transcript of the history, and she mentions it in this, that about his grandpa. They had when she got married, she hadn't seen the family for so long, and she was just yearning to see them. And so they all lived here, Arthur and Blanche, and well, not Blanche yet, but anyway, they she surprised them. She rode her from Guthrie. Took her a whole day to get here, it says. Anyway, and Arthur, Jerry's grandpa, saw her coming and went out to what he just described, and they put the wagon in, and the Mary handed Arthur this baby.
Aww.
Yeah, they didn't know that she had had a baby, and so it was. And they still didn't. They said they went in the house, the old house, which is right there. There's a picture there of the old house. But they were all sitting around the table visiting and eating, and they heard this baby. Arthur had put it in the bedroom. And so when they heard the baby crying, they all just jumped up, it said, and were so excited. the old great-grandpa, he had a grandbaby. I think they said Arthur was 11 when that happened.
Well, what were some of the early livestock and crops?
Well, I assume my dad, I can remember him talking about cotton. He farmed lots of cotton when he took over the place, you know. And I don't know where the old timers farm cotton or not. I assume they did, because that was a big crop back in those days. And wheat and you know, oats and what we could raise to feed the cows. I remember one year we planted 60 acres of corn. It was the first corn that was ever planted in this part of the country that I know of, anyhow. And of course, Dad, he'd always kept a couple hundred head of hogs, and that's where the corn went, to feed the hogs out, you know. And I think that was about it. We had a little alfalfa, about 30 acres of alfalfa, and we had it for years and years, and alfalfa will finally die out over years, you know, and it did, so we never did plant it back. But I think that was mostly it on the crops.
Do you know how back in the old days they would get the crops to the market?
Well, no, I guess probably with wagons, horses and wagons. That would be my best bet. We used to have some of the old machinery set around here after they parked it, all the old horse-drawn stuff, wagons, and there was several old wagons, you know, the old wide wagons that they haul the hay and the cotton and stuff on, big wagons. And then there was several small wagons. We called them lumber wagons because I don't know why. Well, they was made heavy, you know, had big old planks across them where they could haul trees and haul them to the sawmill and have them cut up. And that's about all I can tell you about that. All I can recall anyhow.
Now, was the farm primarily worked by family members, or did you have outside help?
No, I think probably, of course, back in those days, neighbors help neighbors, you know. But I think probably all those boys of the family, you know, was probably the main caretakers and workers on the farm.
And the farm's water source?
Well, you mean for the household or just the entire farm?
The entire farm.
Yeah. This old creek down here, we've got a creek that we're fortunate enough to have that runs all the way through the place, and it runs a year round. And we've got a natural spring back over here that we've had dug out with machinery, you know, equipment, and it's probably 6-8 foot deep and 30-40 foot across, and it stays full year round. And then Dad had, when he took it over, he had one of these canyons dammed up and made a pretty good sized pond down there. But that was later on, you know. The old timers probably just depended on that spring and the creek, I suppose.
And you were born here on the farm?
I was born, they had bought a quarter adjoining this one, catty cornered again, over there, and there was a house on it, and that's where I was born, over there. The grandpa and grandma still lived here when I was born, and my dad and mother lived over there in that house at that time. But I was born right over there and wasn't over there very long till we come back over here.
So as a little boy, you would spend a lot of time helping out,
Oh yeah.
doing work on the farm?
Yeah.
What would you do?
Oh, Dad, he rented a lot of land besides this, and he had me on a tractor when I was 8 years old. I mean, I run a tractor just about as good as a grown-up, and I've been on it ever since. But that was, I helped. And when I got up old enough, you know, to kind of be more responsible for everything, in the wintertime we'd cut wood. And back in the old days, they had wooden posts, fence posts. Well, we'd cut wooden fence posts, and we'd take them to the community sale and sell them, you know, for a little income, and besides what we didn't use. And in the summertime, we'd bale hay. We'd usually start from we'd go out towards Dover, out west here, about 15 miles. And we'd start in out there on alfalfa. And we'd bale and bale and bale, and we'd wind up just west of Stillwater's. We had a trail going through there. These farmers, you know, they expected us every year. We've done that for years and years. But I thought it was lots of work at that time. And now I think it's more than it was then. It would be now.
So how early would you get up, and what would you have to do and get done before you had to go to school?
Well, we milk cows, so we had to get up early. I don't remember what time is when Dad hollered. And he was the alarm clock. When he hollered, you best get up, you know. And we did. We milked usually 3 cows, and we'd have to separate the cream, you know, and all that stuff, and separate her. And Mom, she knowed how to cook. She'd raise us up on that good old country living. And then when I got to go to school, I was fortunate enough to have the school bus routes when I started. So I got to drive the school bus all the time. And I could look forward to every evening. I'd be ready to do something. They'd have something for me. Their dad would. But he'd give me plenty of time to do my homework and all that good stuff.
Well, where'd you live when you were back over here?
In this old house, they used to sit right out north here.
Okay.
Yeah. And and then we moved back over there in the other farm. And we lived there till Dad passed away. He died when he was 58 years old. And, you know, real unexpected. And Patsy and I lived over there with Mom and helped her out with the farm. Well, Dad was farming both places, you know, when he passed. And we helped her out for several years there. And finally she decided that she just moved to town, so she bought a place in town. And we continued living over there till 76. And we built this house here. And that old house was, it was still there. I mean, but it was rickety.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we, all the lumber was rotten. There wasn't nothing to salvage out of it. It had the old rock foundation under it, you know, the big rocks like I was telling you about. And that the boys had dug up when they built that house. And I wished I knew what year it was, but I don't.
So as structures were coming down and going up, did you reuse a lot of materials in different ways?
No, most of it was pretty well used up.
Mm-hmm.
The tornado took the chicken house and the big barn, and they had several other sheds around over the place, you know, that they kept tacking stuff in to save from running the teams back to the barn, you know, to the big tack room to fix. And they had tack in little sheds, and the tornado took it all except the old house. It didn't take the house. It twisted it, moved it off of the foundation about a foot or so, but it's a tough old house. And the cellar, I was going to tell you about that. It's still there, that the boys dug. And this old place is pretty rocky. And they got down about 4 foot or, yeah, probably 4 foot. And then they hit that rock. And they just kept a digging. And they got her on down to, I don't know what it is, it's probably 6 foot deep.
It's a really neat looking cellar.
Yeah,
It's
it's got an arch roof in it made out of bricks, just ready-made town bricks, you know. And it's got an arch in it for a roof, and it's a real neat deal. But it's still there. It's still usable. Matter of fact, we've been in it several times on these tornadoes.
I bet.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned your mother's cooking.
Yeah.
What did she cook?
Oh man, anything you want to eat, we'd have it. You know, we'd butcher our own beef and hogs, and the garden. We probably had 2-3 acre garden every year, and she'd can stuff out of the garden. You know, put it up for winter, and that's what we'd eat. You know, it was homegrown. Everything was homegrown.
Chicken?
Oh yeah, had chickens. hundreds of chickens. I can remember that pretty well. But yeah, she was a wonderful cook. She really knowed how to please a hungry guy, you know.
Did she make your clothes?
No, well, some of them, but most of them was bought, you know, out of the store.
Okay.
I think Grandma Blanche did. Made you some shoes.
Yeah, Grandma Blanche made lots of clothes for me. But that's after she kind of retired and didn't have much else to do.
Did they quilt much?
They did, yeah. She used to make lots of quilts.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I can remember those. And I always thought they was neat. She'd make little old flowery looking deals on them, you know, and big squares and had all different kinds of material.
We have one right there, that she made.
And well, they was always warm in the winter. And that's when we needed it.
Mm-hmm.
That old house out there wasn't nothing but boards on the outside and laths on the inside and plaster. And the wind would come through, it'd make your linoleum float in there, you know, where we had linoleum. And it was a cold old house.
Was it heated?
No, just wood stove.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And where was your room?
Well, it had an upstairs in it, and that's where I stayed. Yeah, it was like I said a while ago, those old houses was made, about all of them was made the same, you know, and kind of an L shape with the big kitchen on one end and the living room and maybe a bedroom or two on the other end, and upstairs had the whole west half of it full open upstairs if you wanted it open, and you know you could petition it off and make 2 or 3 bedrooms up there if you wanted to. But I had the whole upstairs to myself.
So you were an only child?
Well, at that time I've got a sister, but she had already left home. And yeah, I spent the time by myself.
Well, what would you do for fun? I know you worked a lot.
Well,
Did you have any time?
it wasn't a whole lot. We didn't. I can remember going to town on Saturday evening. We'd usually go to town and buy some groceries and whatever we needed, and we'd set up on the Main Street up there with a row of other older people, you know, and kids and stuff, and visit and with one another and just kind of take in the sights. And you know, I knew about everybody around, kid-wise, you know. We had lots of fun up there.
Well, I guess Crescent at one point probably had the rail going through.
Yeah,
And it was probably a happening little town back then.
it was. Yeah, a pretty spry little town. Yeah, they didn't close the railroad down till, I'm gonna say what, 10 years ago?
It's been longer than that.
Is it? Okay. Oh yeah, I guess it has. But yeah, there was a rail come through there out of Enid and went to Guthrie.
Well, back during modern times for the farm, what were the crops and livestock produced here?
Well, the wheat and cotton and oats and that was about the main grains. And then, you know, like I said, they raised the hogs and cows and everything mostly for our own consumption, you know. But Dad raised lots of hogs that he would sell, you know. And on the side of that, him and Mom would make homemade sausage. They had Now this though, with the other place had a building out there that they built just for that, and had everything in there you needed to make sausage out of. And they had governments, the inspectors where they'd come out and look things over, and they had a stamp that they had put on it package. Every package that they make was Abe and Ava's whole hog sausage. And they sold that all over the county. They just couldn't keep up with it, But he didn't do it but in the winter, when they had slack time. And everybody knows it. And they still want it. and all I for years and years we bought all kinds of different seasonings, and I've never found the right seasoning.
They never wrote down the recipe?
No. He had it up here, and he'd mix it, and like I said, they'd be lined up out in the front yard waiting to get some sausage. But I never could find it, and the seasoning. Now some of that he bought from a dealership over Guthrie, and I finally got a hold of the old gentleman that used to own that, and his memory wasn't too good. But he told me some names, and I tried to chase it down, and I never could. Evidently somebody's bought them out, some bigger companies probably bought them out. But I never could find the correct name, and I do not remember what it was. But it sure was good. He put the whole hog in there. I mean, the hams and the shoulders and everything.
Wow.
And you trim that old fat off and get the old fat out of it. And that's why they liked it, because it was so lean, You wouldn't hardly have any grease after you cooked you a skillet full of sausage, But I do remember helping them make that sausage.
Well, describe for me a typical day on the farm for you.
For me, during the summer?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, we'd get up early in the morning and milk the cows and slop the hogs and make sure everything was going all right with the livestock. Then we'd hit the fields. If we was combining, well, we'd combine the wheat, and then after that, we sat in plowing. Everybody plowed back in those days. And I don't know. When I was just a little old kid, Daddy put me in. We had an old D John Deere. It was one of them. I don't know. You probably don't know what I'm talking about, but it was one of the old husky-looking old type tractors, the two-cylinder that popped, and it had an old hand clutch on it, where you pull the clutch back to stop it and push it forward to go. And that's, I'd have to get up and rear up against that stick, that clutch lever, to get it to go. But once we got to going, we'd just pop all over the country, round and around. And then them old plows, I think we pulled a 3-bottom behind it, I believe. And they had trips on them where you pull the rope, and they'd trip them to come up out of the ground, where you turn around, and then you'd have to trip it again, then go back down in the ground, the plow. Mm-hmm. And it was a pretty good chore for an old kid here, I really wasn't big enough to do that, but I done it. But every year got better, or easier, seemed like.
So tell me about the farm today.
unfortunately, I had my first heart attack in '91. Patsy and I was farming the places, and we was rocking along pretty good. I would work for the county, run road grader and all their equipment for them, for years and years. And I'd work for them all day and come home and farm all night. And she'd take care of the youngins. We had 2 children. And well, we still got 2 children. But anyhow,
Yeah,
that was her job, take care of them in the house and all that stuff. And anyhow, I'd plow or do whatever I needed to do, usually plow at night, 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'd come home, go to bed, and get up and go to work next morning, and day after day after day till we got it caught up. And then we'd, work the ground 2 or 3 times in between seeding time, and then we'd seed it in and let the wheat grow and run the old cows on the wheat pasture, raise a few calves. That's about it.
And you're still doing that today, or
No, in '91 I had my first heart attack, and it was bad enough that they decided I really didn't need to be doing a whole lot of effort, putting out a whole lot of effort. So we sowed everything to Bermuda grass. Just sowed it in the grass, and after we finally got that established, we baled some of it for the cows that we got now to run them through the winter, and the rest of it we just let the cows run on it and eat it. And that took lots of effort and work on both of us, down where we could cruise along a little easier.
Well, it was more manageable.
Sure did cut down on the income though.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So how many cattle do you have today?
I've just got 10 cows and 10 calves and a bull, 3 donkeys and a horse.
Donkeys.
We just added a new donkey the day before yesterday, baby. We had a baby. First one I was ever around, baby donkey. Went out there and seen it, and thought it was an overgrown jackrabbit to start with. Cute little thing.
Well, today, tell me about the current structures that are on the property. How many barns?
Well, all I've got is just 2 sheds, 3 sheds, small sheds, and the house is all that. Another thing we didn't never get around to, we was going to rebuild that barn down there with the basement under it, yeah, or build a top over it anyhow to have a barn for the cows to get in and out of it. But I built one up here on the hill and for them to get out of the weather. And we just never did get back to the barn. And plus the walls are starting to fall in now, the rock walls. The walls are probably, I'll say probably 8 to 10 foot tall. Yeah, on three walls, And the front one had a rock troughs that they'd feed the milk cows in, and stanchions built in there where they'd run the cows in and lock their heads in the stanchion when they milk them. And anyhow, the walls are starting to fall in now, and it's beyond repair. Someday we get rich, we might dig those rocks out and bring them up here and make something else out of them. Flower bed or something, maybe. But there's old roads where they used to drive their teams and equipment, down across this canyon that we was talking about. Then up the other side and go back in the far north side. There's 20 acres back there that it's in cultivation. And the old road's still there, and I find some old parts and pieces every once in a while walking down the old road, boats and stuff that's fell out of their equipment, It's quite interesting. Wish you could talk to some of them,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Well, how was record keeping done during your father's time, and how is it different from your record keeping today?
About the same.
It's the same?
It's all zero. No, him and Mom kept records of everything, just the ledger book.
And we do use the computer some.
Yeah. We've got about everything on the computer. And I would say it's much different, about the same old way of doing things.
Did your parents talk much about the 1930s during the Depression?
No, not really. I've heard them, they neither one of them was any of them to complain. But I've heard them talk about how rough it was, just generally rough, the whole country was, of course, but it's pretty hard on them.
Being on the farm, they were more they had more things to subsist on than town folks, I guess.
Oh, yeah. But still yet, they would, like I said, they'd plant a big old garden, and then always had hogs and cows, they could back up on to eat for food, And, Mom would can up stuff, and we'd have to find our own spots in the cellar when we went down there to hide, from the tornadoes, because the rest of it was full of food, canned food. She canned up a bunch.
They have fruit trees.
We had some. We've got some of the old pear trees out back here that's made it. They pretty well the only ones that survived. And they was from the old. Well, I'll say the old days. I can remember them being there when I was just a little kid. And they had pears on them then, because I remember picking. So I don't know.
Well, do you remember when electricity came to the farm?
I do.
Well,
I
tell us a
remember
little bit
when
about
we
that.
did not have that.
Okay, talk a little bit about that.
Well, it was just coal oil lamps and go to bed early usually. We didn't have to use a light, but coal oil lamps was our main deal. And we've still got some of the old lamps. But that was it. Electricity came in, I can't tell you what year. But we had, Dad bought a radio. And that was kind of my entertainment, was the radio. That's all we had. And we'd sit there and listen to the radio at night. And then we didn't have gas. We all cooked off with wood. And finally he bought I guess it must have been a good year for farming or prices or something. And then he bought Mom a new cook stove, gas cook stove. And we'd run it off of propane bottles or kind of cylinders that's about this big around and probably that tall. And we had 3 or 4 of those cylinders, and we'd have to fill them up about every 2 or 3 weeks. over at the propane place, but boy, we was in tall cotton one night. We got that stove, gas stove, and they just flick a switch and throw a match in it, you know, to light it back then. They didn't light themselves. But that was kind of it on that. The electricity was wonderful. You know, of course, it's kind of like it is now. You just keep adding stuff, and then we got the old house wired up for electric, and like I said, the radio, and I don't know what was next. Maybe in the TV.
Not the refrigerator?
Well, maybe in a refrigerator. I don't really know. But anyhow, that TV was a pretty hot item back then, you know. It just didn't everybody have a TV. And I can remember it seemed like a little old picture wasn't about that big, you know, a tube. Arvin, I remember the name of it. It was an Arvin TV.
And where had he gone to get that?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I guess probably got three over one of those hardware stores. I don't really remember.
Radio. Let's go back to the radio just a minute. Then you could. Do you remember what programs you may have listened to?
Oh, let's see. I was trying to remember that a while ago, but oh my, there was cowboy shows on there that they had. All Roy Rogers and Dale Evans, of course, was the tops, and Gene Autry, and he'd sing a while and have his little story going on, you know. And oh gosh, I don't know.
Baseball games?
No, we wasn't too much in on sports back then. But no, that was about it, you know. Some of those, the old comics, you know, would have comic programs on, you know, where you sit down and get a big laugh out of them. Yeah, it's quite a deal. Then we got a water well. We put electric pump in it. Oh yeah. There wasn't no more of that going out there and pumping that water. That was a several time a day deal too, you know, the old water bucket and old wooden water buckets, and the well over that old place was just right outside the house. Oh, 20, 30 foot out there to it. Had a windmill on it, and the windmill would let it pump most of the day, and had a pipe on it that run out of the pump down to the tank, livestock tank. Then the old cows that we had in the lot or something, you know, well, they'd have water. Then we'd go out there and take that pipe off and put the old wooden bucket underneath there and fill it up. 3 gallon, I believe it was, 3 gallon bucket. They're an antique now. They bring lots of money if you can find them.
What about indoor plumbing then?
No, we didn't have that for a long time after that. Yeah, we was out close to the chickens where we had to go for that.
Well, speaking of all the water, what would you do for bath time?
Well, we had what they call them, number 3 tubs, the long tubs, you know, the galvanized tub where they made round ones, and then they made an oblong one. That was our bathtub. And we'd put that right out there on the back porch, and that's where we'd bathe off.
Once a week?
Oh, no, us, you know, when we was farming, probably every night, you know. But some of them was farther than that apart.
Even in the wintertime?
Yeah.
On the porch?
Yeah, we'd heat the water on that old wood stove, and then we didn't waste much propane on heating water. We'd save that to cook with. But yeah, it didn't. You could fill that old tub about half full of cold water, and it wouldn't take a couple of gallons of hot water
Mix it.
to make it warm, you know. We could stand it.
Well, do you remember home extension agents coming by?
No, I don't. Sure don't. Probably did, but I don't remember. Or they didn't while we was.
And no county agents coming by?
No.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now your grandma Blanche belonged to one.
Well,
I don't know.
did she till she moved to Guthrie
No, I think they.
before?
I think so. I don't know, but I think so.
I don't remember. Sure don't.
Did you do any conservation efforts?
I'm sure they did the
Terracing
old
or anything?
time. We haven't done a whole lot here. We did. We got a flood back in 98, I believe it was. Yeah, it's the first time this old creek had ever jumped its banks, and it come down across our field down there in the bottom and cut a big old wash down through that, and I had to go get the. Oh, now you got me thinking hard here. Now I can't even call the. Anyhow, it's a conservation district over there, and they come out and looked everything over and staked it off and helped me out with some money on it. And we made a big dam where it would catch this water that was coming down through that wash, and put a pipe in it where it would go on into the creek, and sure has helped.
Did your dad give you any advice on how to work the land?
He just showed me, you know. So ever since I was a little kid, said do this and do it right, you know. And I'm sure there's lots he could have told me if he didn't go so quick. But anyhow, you follow him around, and he usually done it right, you know.
Well, how did he end up with the land? If he had many brothers and sisters, did he have?
He just had 2 sisters.
So it goes to the son.
Grandpa was the baby of great grandpa's kids, 11 of them, 10. And he was the baby, the last one to leave home. So he bought all of his brothers and sisters out. And he wound up owning this place where now on the royalty is a different deal. They had the 160 acres of it, of royalty, oil and lease, gas lease royalty and rights.
Mm-hmm.
And Grandpa tried to buy them out, and then some of them just wouldn't sell it at all. You know, they thought it was a gold mine. And but anyhow, he got some of it bought. But they sold the mineral or the top rights, you know, the land rights.
Surface.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So how many total acres do you have now?
160.
And how big was it?
That's it.
That's the biggest it's been?
Yeah, that's all they let them. Homestead in the run, you know, was 160.
But then you had half a section for a while.
We had
too,
a quarter over there that they bought later on.
And then sold it. Was it
Yeah.
still-
Yeah, my cousin owns it now. He bought it.
What were holidays like?
Well, you know, my mom was, there was 11 of them kids, wasn't it?
Probably.
Yeah. And my grandpa and grandma was named Charlie and Ethel Cox. And they owned a farm about 3 miles south of us down here. And of course, Dad and Mom, you know, was married, and most of the time they had all those kids. And about every Sunday, everybody show up down at Grandpa and Grandma Cox's for dinner. Now, their dinner table consisted of the big long, real long picnic tables that you've seen, you know, 3 or 4 card tables long or something like that. Well, there was 2 of them, but this old heavy duty made out of 2-inch stuff, and that's what they had in their kitchen. The old house was big, you know, or the kitchen area was, and all their 11 kids and them and all their kids, you know, would gather up down there just about every Sunday and every holiday. Usually we'd be down there. We'd go to Guthrie to some of our kin folks over there, you know, on maybe Christmas or half a day or, you know. But there was always a holiday spent with family. Best we could, yeah.
Well, how did you meet your wife?
Oh, I can't tell that. After I got up old enough to get me a car, we always had to go to different towns and kind of scout it out, you know, and look around and see all the girls and all the history points of the towns, you know. And I met her at Guthrie. That's where she was raised. Went to school. So we kind of hit it off and decided we'd get married. Ain't been nothing but happiness ever since.
That's a very good answer.
Yeah.
Well, where do you see the farm going in the next 100 years?
Well, we're hoping that the family will be out here some of these days. Our kids, family, you know, and grandkids. I don't know what the outlook's going to be for the United States, but I'm just pretty sure that people's going to be looking for a place to live, and we're going to try our best to have this in case it worse comes to worse, that they can come back here and build them a lean-to down here in the creek like the old folks did. Yeah. But anyhow, you know, everybody's not going to have that to come back on, and I'm sure that they'll. Oh, it may be after they retire, you know. But I'm sure they'll be back out here, living in a house somewhere.
Do you have daughters or one?
We got one of each.
One of each.
Yeah. Our daughter lives down south of Crescent. Down here, her husband is our county commissioner here in Logan County in District 3. And they've got 2 girls. She does from a previous marriage. And they're just happy as they can be. And our son and his family lives in Las Vegas. He didn't think much of them old tractors that I did, you know, when he was a kid. So anyhow, he met his wife. He went through OSU, graduated out of OSU, and met his wife in Tulsa, I believe it was, where they met.
Mm-hmm. But he did graduate from OSU in the engineering, and he's done real well out there with his degree. Mm-hmm. He's done real well out there.
That's good.
But he does plan to come back. He promised. Mm-hmm. But,
Ain't no telling when it'll be.
Our granddaughter Haley, Lana has the 2 girls, and Mark has the 2 boys, and Haley will be a senior in the nursing program at OSU OKC, and Megan, the second one, she's going to SWOSU. She'll be a sophomore.
Great.
Mm-hmm. Mark's boys. Mark is AJ, the oldest. He is a senior, and he will graduate next month. And he wanted to come to OSU, but the tuition, out-of-state tuition, And Mark is a lifetime alumni member, and he thought that there was something that maybe could help him out, but we checked, and there isn't. So he's going to go ahead and go to University of Las Vegas. And then Sean, he's 11.
He has a little bit of time.
He's got a little bit of time, and he wants to come to the farm.
He likes
He
tractors.
loves the farm. He loves it out here.
He comes back and spends the summer with us about
He
every
does.
year.
He loves it. He's just he's the one that will appreciate it more than I think any of the other three. But
Well, what are some of the biggest challenges today in running the farm, the ranch, for you?
Oh, for me, it's my health. I can't do, a whole lot of physical work. I haven't been able to since I had 3 heart attacks, and then they got each one of them cleared up with the angioplasty. But the 4th one, they had to go in and do triple bypass, and that really knocked me down. And then this horse wreck that I had, they can't get it straightened out. Well, I hope eventually I get it where I can do something.
Did Crescent have a movie theater?
It
when you
did,
were-
Ritz, at a Ritz theater, and it cost me a dime to go every time I'd go till I was 12, I believe it was, and then it's quarter then. Raised it up to quarter and it got to be 12. But yeah, we enjoyed seeing all the old cowboy movies and all the good movies. They had, the top-notch movies come up here. And people come from miles around just to come to the little show at Crescent. But I couldn't tell you what year it shut down, but it sat there empty for years and years. And finally, they tore it out and filled up the slope down to the bottom, made level with the world. And now it's a church. Yeah, they have church in there every Sunday. But that was the story on the show.
In those days too, did they have any restaurants downtown?
Oh yeah, Buku's restaurant. Wasn't a word to find a place to eat. They had several. They called it, one of them, the biggest one, was the City Cafe. That was there for years and years, and still, no, it's not now, but the building is. But anyhow, there was another big restaurant went in, and then there was probably 3 more smaller ones, that went in.
Any 5 and dimes?
Yep, used to have a 5 and dime store right next to the drugstore, and it was right next to the jewelry shop, and it was right next to the man and woman barber shop, and it was right next to the post office, and it was right next to the hardware store. And it used to be a thriving little town, but it's pretty well folded up now.
Did the drugstore have a counter for
Did.
food?
Yeah, had bar and bar stools where you could.
Ice cream.
Yep, ice cream malts. That was their big specialty, was malt and stuff. And the pharmacy,
I didn't hear a library in there somewhere.
Well, it was on down the other side of town. It was down by the park.
So there was one.
It was one, yeah. It still is.
Were any of the buildings built with the WPA, do you know?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, they're all, a lot of them, they're the quarried rock, the old sand rock where they cut them out in squares, and built the buildings out of it. I'm sure WPA had something to do with it. Yeah, my dad, back in the Depression days, he worked for the WPA around here building bridges and stuff. And he had a team of horses and slip, he called it, you know. He'd move dirt with it, kind of like they do with a scraper now, you know, or big machinery. And his old horses, I remember him, Dick and Diamond was their name. Great big old workhorses, you know. He'd walk along behind them and scoop this dirt up and carry it wherever he needed it and dump it and come back and get another load.
Are the bridges still standing?
They are. Some of the
That's what he did.
yeah, the ends of them are still standing. Most of them they've redone them and built new bridges, you know, because they were just single lane bridges and had the old banisters over down here where you came in. There was oh gosh, what's it been? 4 years? That was probably 4 years old. And there was an old banister bridge there. You know, the banisters was probably 10 foot tall on 'em. But it was a rickety old bridge, but it held up a lot of big loads. They didn't nobody know but us and the truck driver that went across it, because we'd see them, you know.
Yeah.
But anyhow, they got us a new bridge in there now, and most of the there's very few old bridges left.
Well, when you were in high school, did you participate in 4-H or FFA?
FFA, I was in FFA all through high school. But that was about it. I never did play football. I was always on a tractor somewhere, you know.
Well, for your projects, what would you do?
I had cows or calves and hogs. I'd show hogs and calves, and one year Dad let me have a quarter over here, and I raised wheat crop off of it, you know, to put down on the book, you know, for my project.
So you went to county fairs?
Yeah, we would usually go to them. I never did show except through the FFA, you know. But
We have ribbons.
yeah,
He had some blue and red ribbons.
that's off of the hogs and calves. But I never did do any canning or
Well, you would have had a good teacher, though, from what
I
you
did, I would, yeah. Sure enough, she enjoyed going over there. She even didn't go all the time, but when she did go, she'd sure enjoy going to the canyon area, you know.
And where would that be?
At the Logan County Fairgrounds in Guthrie. Yeah, down on South Division.
Well, is there anything else that you would like to add that we have not talked to you guys about today? Anything you want to add in there?
Gosh, I don't know what it would be. I'm sure there's lots of things. Like I said, it would probably, I'll think of it, make you a whole list after you leave. But
But how long have you two been married?
44 years.
44.
And I will say, and you can edit this or whatever, but Jerry loves the land. The soil is his. He's been a wonderful caretaker of the land and the soil to keep it right here in the family.
well, you ain't got nowhere to go. You might as well be here.
Well, we appreciate you taking time out this Sunday
well, we
to
enjoy
speak
it.
with us.
Yeah.
Well, we love OSU.
Well, that's good.
Yes.
And even if you didn't, that would be okay too.
No, but we do.
Yeah, we're pretty solid.